Hello, and welcome to episode 625 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always, joined by Evan Silva. Week 1 is officially behind us. We learned more on Sunday and this week's games than we learned the entire offseason. So much important stuff to get to. Evan, how was your week 1?
There was some good and there was some bad, and we're going to go through all of it. I got a ton of notes on every team, every game. Very interesting. So many freaking injuries. And it wasn't necessarily star fantasy players, although there were plenty of star fantasy players that got hurt. But I mean, there were a ton of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive line. We're going to get to all that stuff. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I try to focus on in matchups is nailing down, because that really impacts matchups, injuries on the offensive line, the defense. So we'll get to all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Ton of injuries, including some under the radar ones that really stink, like Deontay Johnson and Greg Dulcich. We'll talk about all that today. On today's show, we're going to go team by team through each AFC squad, talking through everything we saw and what it means going forward. We'll be doing this every week right here. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. It is indeed free. Before we get into it here today, two things. First, we are currently working on our rest of season top 150 rankings. Yes, there will be some very significant changes. We think the rest of season top 150 is a very useful tool for trading, digesting how to think about players the rest of season, factors in buys, injuries, usage, etc. If you have DraftKit Pro or our in-season package, be on the lookout for the rest of season top 150 dropping Wednesday. Also, I know best ball season is sadly over, but our friends at Underdog still have plenty of action. Weekly snake draft tournaments. They announced a live final in Miami. Lots more. Use promo code ETR when you sign up at Underdog for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. That's promo code ETR at UnderdogFantasy.com. All right, Evan, let's start with the Ravens and one of the worst injuries of the week. We've certainly had our battles with J.K. Dobbins. I tweeted something he tweeted back at me about a year ago. He was not happy with me. However, I still feel for the guy. He's now torn his ACL and his Achilles in 25 months. He knew that he needed to get paid. He tried to do some light holdout. Obviously, it was never going to work. It didn't work. But at this point, you have to think J.K. Dobbins' career is in jeopardy. Sad for him. For us going forward, Evan, what do you think about Ravens' backfield and anything else you want to say about the Ravens' opening day win over the Texans?
It was a fairly even rotation between Gus Edwards and Justice Hill after J.K. Dobbins went out. And they're going to pull up Melvin Gordon from the practice squad. And John Harbaugh says that they're not going to sign anybody else. We'll see about that. You know, they might change their mind after a week or something, looking to Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette, something like that. Two major injuries on the offensive line. I mean, Lamar Jackson was under pressure against Houston, and you didn't really expect that to happen. But Ronnie Stanley got hurt, and Tyler Linderbaum, their starting center, also got hurt. Lamar Jackson only had 2 designed runs. He went up taking 4 sacks and 7 hits. Didn't really throw the ball downfield. Remember, they didn't have Mark Andrews. It sounds like Mark Andrews is going to be back this week.
Yes.
Rashad Bateman ran as the clear number 3 behind Zay Flowers, who was awesome, by the way, and Odell Beckham. That was very disappointing, I think, for Rashad Bateman's going forward outlook. You don't want, especially with Mark Andrews coming back, you don't want a guy on your fantasy team only playing like 40% of the snaps.
Who would you prefer to add between Justice Hill and Gus Edwards? My initial thought was I was impressed that Justice Hill came in and immediately got some goal line work. Also, we know Justice Hill, I think, is a better pass catcher, but Gus Edwards has been very efficient through his career. Who would you rather have, Evan, on your team between Justice and Gus?
I would rather have Gus Edwards, I think. I think that Gus Edwards is like legitimately good, and I don't think that Justice Hill is very good. I liked Justice Hill when he was coming out of college, but I mean, he's been in the league several years at this point, and he has not impressed me as an offensive football player. He's pretty good on special teams, and maybe he'll get some pass down work, or a little bit, but I mean, is Lamar really going to throw the ball to the running backs, and are they going to throw a lot? I mean, he only threw the ball 22 times in this game.
I thought that, I mean, first of all, it sucks for the J.K. Dobbins owners because he was playing a ton and he was actually getting targets. Like, this is a really, really bad injury for anyone who drafted J.K. Dobbins. He was set up to have a really, really good year. I think with what the Ravens want to do, you can make a case that Justice Hill fits better. But I agree with you that Gus Edwards has been a very good NFL running back throughout his career and very efficient there. Check out the waivers article and the waiver show I did with Sam for more on that. Evan mentioned Zay Flowers. This was a smashing debut, in my opinion, for Zay Flowers. Plays 54 out of 64 snaps, 10 targets. Now, 10 targets for a 45% share. This is like off the charts kind of usage for Zay Flowers, despite competing with Odell Beckham, despite competing with Rashad Bateman, who only saw 3 targets each. And they were scheming him the ball. They handed it to him twice. They ran all these bubble screens for him and these short hitches. 9 catches, 78 yards, no touchdowns. Guys like a human joystick out there. I mean, my priority stack with Lamar this year was Zay, so I'm feeling really, really good about the Zay Flowers usage in week 1. But yeah, Lamar's got to pick it up. Offensive line stuff certainly doesn't help. Let's go to Bills game last night. So coming to this game, I think people maybe didn't realize how good the Jets defense is. I know you harped on it in matchups. Jets defense has been a problem going back to last year for Josh Allen and the Bills. They are very, very good. Thought Josh Allen would struggle. Did not think he would struggle this bad. What was your reaction to Bills losing to a Zach Wilson MILF Hunter Jets team last night?
Yeah, I'm not going to give Zach Wilson too much credit for that. But, yeah, I mean, I expected Josh Allen to struggle in this game. And I said to downgrade, I would still play him, in a 1-quarterback league. One thing to note about this first week, that it was incredibly low scoring.
Yeah.
Incredibly. I think there were 61. I don't know. Someone put up a stat. There were 61 week 1 offensive touchdowns. And that's like the second fewest in the last 12 years.
Yeah. Normally there's 70, 80. Yeah. It was really bad for offense.
Yeah. So I would say, if your guys struggled in fantasy, like a lot of guys struggled in fantasy in the first week, Josh Allen foremost among them. My biggest takeaway from this Jets-Bills game on the Bills side was that James Cook operated as the clear lead back, but they also subbed him out in scoring position and on too many passing downs. Where did he finish with in terms of I guess he had 6 targets.
Yeah.
But only 4 for 17 as a receiver. I don't know. I'm still kind of in the middle on James Cook. Do you think he's like a buy right now?
So my thing on James Cook was I thought the usage for James Cook was pretty good. 12 carries and 6 targets. His usage was good. You can check my Twitter. I tweeted the stats. The concern for me was what you said. They went to a big 2-minute drill. James Cook wasn't out there. It was Latavius Murray out there. And by the way, Latavius Murray played more snaps than Damian Harris. So if you're going to have Latavius Murray eating in on pass downs, and by the way, Damian Harris only mostly played special teams. Latavius played 16 offensive snaps. Damian Harris 9. Harris played on special teams. Latavius didn't. In other words, they had Latavius Murray active just to give James Cook a break or play him over him on pass downs, which was concerning. But yeah, I thought James Cook was fine. I'm happy I have James Cook in the 7th and 8th round and stuff like that, but I don't think I'm going out to buy him. One thing on usage I noticed, the Bills barely played any 3 and 4 wide receiver formations. Deontay Hardy only ran 13 routes. Trent Sherfield 6 routes. Khalil Shakir 6 routes. It was indeed Dalton Kincaid in that 11.5 formation. Dalton Kincaid ran 37 routes on 50 Josh Allen dropbacks. However, and maybe the Jets defense has something to do with this, Dalton Kincaid's ADOT was 1.5 yards. I mean, it was ugly for Dalton Kincaid. Did not finish with a very productive box score. So yeah, that's just something to watch. He played a lot, but where he was being used was not.
Yeah, that was that's counterintuitive. He's supposed to be like a seam stretching tight end. He had 6 air yards.
Yeah.
In this game. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'll tell you what, I expect them to bounce back though against the Raiders in week 2. I think the Bills offense is going to be fine. The Jets might have the best defense in the league.
Yep. Bengals. So Joe Mixon did not consolidate here, and the Bengals didn't show up. I mean, this was one of the worst games I've ever seen Joe Burrow play. I mean, it was absolutely inept. T. Higgins ran 33 routes on 33 Burrow dropbacks, got 8 targets. I'm not sure any of them were really catchable. I mean, he had a 25% target share. He finished with 0 catches, did T. Higgins. I mean, it was really, really weird what happened. I understand Cleveland has a very good defense. I understand Cleveland has played them well in the past. I understand that there was a bit of weather there in Cleveland, as there typically is. But man, it was ugly for the Bengals. I want to get to Joe Mixon in a second here, Evan, but any reaction to the Bengals laying an egg here in week 1?
Well, they just got straight up out coached by Jim Schwartz, the Browns' new defensive coordinator, who did everything right, got a ton of pressure, and they covered. I mean, the Browns just played on defense. The Browns played a near perfect game. Mm-hmm. So, and also Joe Burrow, like a lot of these guys that didn't play at all in the preseason, and Joe Burrow like didn't even practice, very much. Like he's going to come out rusty. Like I think it's not a surprise that they struggle to this extent. I don't think anybody expected that. But if you really think about all the machinations going into this game, it's not surprising that Joe Burrow struggled. He also has a tendency to be a little bit of a slow starter. And you know, his mobility is compromised. Like he ain't gonna be doing a whole lot of running around or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I regret playing Jamar Chase on Sunday in DFS. I just didn't think through the spot enough. I wasn't worried about Joe Burrow, but Cleveland's defense, the way they played them before, the weather and everything like that. The
weather too,
yeah, it just wasn't great. I was hopeful for Joe Mixon to consolidate more of the work. He played 35 snaps. Travion Williams played 16. Chris Evans also got 7 snaps. So they're using Travion and Chris Evans kind of in that Samaje Perine role.
Yep.
Not great for Joe Mixon. But
Chase Brown, their rookie, who some people liked, was a healthy scratch.
Indeed he was. One of those Browns that we just talked about. So this game got out of control in the fourth quarter. But in the first 3 quarters, Nick Chubb had 22 opportunities. Jerome Ford had 4. And then Jerome Ford got a lot of garbage time work in the final box score. Do not get it twisted, though. Nick Chubb's usage was awesome. He also had 4 first-half targets. I would note that in Week 18 last year, Nick Chubb got 6 targets from Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying that Nick Chubb's turning in to Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler. I'm just saying Nick Chubb can go out and catch 2 or 3 balls in every game this year. I don't think that's absolutely insane to think. Evan, what do you think of the Browns' very good performance here in Week 1?
Deshaun Watson is still being very aggressive as a runner. So I like to see that. Nick Chubb is just going to absolutely destroy this season. I mean, they got the Steelers coming up next. The Steelers could not stop the run against San Francisco whatsoever after they lost Cam Hayward. He needs surgery. So I don't know. Deshaun Watson made a handful of good plays, and overall, what wasn't that impressive. I don't know. I'm still kind of. I'm not like fully, I don't know what to think about the Browns passing game. I'll put it like that. I'm still like waiting. I'm still in wait and see mode with them.
Yeah. Amari Cooper got banged up in this game a little bit, which caused some of the stat stuff and the data to get skewed a bit. But Donovan Peoples-Jones and Elijah Moore did end up running the same amount of routes, but targets were 7-2 in favor of Elijah. And like, I think we all think Elijah has the potential at least to be better than DPJ. I know Evan likes DPJ also. I think DPJ is underrated, but like the ceiling for Elijah Moore as a player, I think is higher. And I'm not all that surprised that he out-targeted DPJ 7-2 here in this game.
They were trying to get the ball to Elijah Moore. I mean, he had rushing attempts and stuff too. Yeah. One of the big injuries was the Browns lost their right tackle, Jack Conklin, to an ACL and MCL. Obviously, he's done for the year. Then they brought in DeJuan Jones, who is a 4th-round pick. He weighs 374 pounds. He's 6'8", 374. And he was really good in place of Jack Conklin. So that is reassuring. Brian Baldinger did a breakdown of DeJuan Jones. He was great coming off the bench, cold as a rookie.
Okay, let's go to the Denver Broncos. So everybody remembers the mess that was Russell Wilson last year. I thought he was much better, like much, much, much better. The offense as a whole and Russ Wilson specifically. That doesn't mean that he was good, though. The big issue here was Marvin Mims, 10 routes on 37 dropbacks. Marvin Mims, I mean, absolutely shockingly, played behind Little Jordan Humphrey and Brandon Johnson. That was a huge miss for us, for me. I have a ton of Marvin Mims in best ball, played Marvin Mims in cash on DraftKings. I don't really know what to say on Marvin Mims other than I can't believe they played him behind Little Jordan Humphrey and Brandon Johnson. Evan, any thoughts on Broncos from their narrow loss to the Raiders?
He really used Russell Wilson as a game manager. He had a low ADOT. The backfield was almost an even split in terms of snaps. Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine, they both played 45% of the snaps. Javonte Williams was more featured on early downs, and Samaje Perine, his role was more like, he's back in Cincinnati. Now, he did get 12 touches, but this looks like an even backfield split at the moment. Greg Dulcich suffered a multi-week hamstring injury. And, look, they're going to need Marvin Mims. They're going to need him. So I think that they'll eventually get him ramped out. They can't play him right now, but they have lost so many pass catchers. Greg Dulcich to the hamstring, Tim Patrick to the Achilles, KJ Hamler to that heart thing. And then, who knows when Jerry Jeudy is going to come back.
Yeah, they did. Jay Glazer had a report right before lock on Sunday saying Jerry Jeudy had a chance to play in week 1. So I don't think it's overly severe on Jerry Jeudy. I think he'll be back week 2 or week 3. I would be trying not to drop Marvin Mims, but I understand if people have to, if you're in a shallower league. Speaking of deep leagues, with Greg Dulcich out, Adam Troutman is going to have an expanded role in the tight end. I just don't think they really play the same positions. Like, I'm not upgrading Adam Troutman that much. Greg Dulcich was going to be a joker F-type tight end. Adam Troutman plays in line, so it's not a huge boost, I don't think, for Adam Troutman. Go to the Houston Texans. Even though the Ravens did not play well, Houston was never really in the game against the Ravens. The big usage note I had here, Evan, was that, we were talking about Dameon Pierce versus Devin Singletary on pass downs. Mike Boone, if you guys have been playing preseason for a long time, you likely remember Mike Boone. Mike Boone ran 19 routes in this game. Dameon Pierce 21. Devin Singletary just 5. And so kind of what we thought was true and was false. What was true is that Devin Singletary is not very good on pass downs, and the Texans know that. What is false is that they were just going to give it all to Dameon Pierce. They brought in Mike Boone to do so. So I thought that was really interesting and not great for Dameon Pierce. Evan, any thoughts on Texans week 1?
Yeah, their offensive line is just a major problem. The Ravens don't even necessarily have a great pass rush, and C.J. Stroud in this game took 5 sacks and 10 quarterback hits. We talked a lot about how the Texans' offensive line has already been dismantled, and it's not going to get better in week 2. Wide receiver Nico Collins and Robert Woods were the guys.
Yeah.
And then Tank Dell mixed in as the third receiver. Noah Brown, a little bit of slot. I don't know. They're still sorting that out. Dalton Schultz didn't do anything.
Yeah. And I think everybody's expectations for Houston were pretty low with Stroud, and I think they were in line with expectations in week 1. The wide receiver I still want remains Nico, and I think pretty clearly Nico. Colts. Man, I thought it was an awesome debut for Anthony Richardson, way outperformed expectation. And I was surprised at what they did with him. He was stringing together long drives, 65% completion rate in your first NFL start after what Anthony Richardson put on tape at Florida is awesome. Now, adjusted for depth, it wasn't that great. 65%. He was 26th on the week in average depth of target, right? So it was a lot of little short stuff, etc. But still, just to maintain a competent pass game. And by the way, they were confident in it. Colts were first in situation neutral pace in week 1. Colts were 8th in first down throw rate in week 1. And then on top of all that, you also had 6 design runs for Anthony Richardson, including one at the goal line. If he didn't bruise his knee, which is nothing, he's going to be fine. And they brought Gardner Minshew in, he would have had another tush-push rushing touchdown almost certainly, and people will be losing their minds right now over Anthony Richardson. So I don't think, if you're a Colts fan or an Anthony Richardson owner in fantasy, I don't think it could have gone any better in week 1. Evan, what did you think of A-Rich's debut? Any other Colts stuff?
Yeah, it was great. And my expectations were low, and he vastly exceeded them. He was the number 3 overall fantasy quarterback on the week. And Anthony Richardson is the engine of this offense already. For a guy had 13 starts in college, and he has to be the engine of the offense because Evan Hull, who was going to get snaps at running back, is out multiple weeks with a knee injury. Deion Jackson had 13 carries for 14 yards and 2 lost fumbles. Jake Funk is the next guy. Jonathan Taylor in coming back. I don't think. So, I think that people that were high on Anthony Richardson, you have to be very, very pleased with what you have seen so far.
Yeah, the floor for fantasy just completely absurd. He's going to get the carries from inside the 5-yard line. He's going to get 6, 7, 8 designed runs per game, and he showed me that he can give you something as a passer also. So yeah, super excited on Anthony Richardson. Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is no joke, man. Everybody was saying, can Trevor Lawrence take the next step? He was awesome the end of last year. He was awesome in this game, I thought, again, and it certainly helped to get Calvin Ridley out there. Calvin Ridley is out there cooking people right away after not playing for so long. On the wide receiver stuff, Calvin Ridley is a problem for Christian Kirk. Obviously, targets and target share is a problem when Calvin Ridley is commanding so much, but also on 35 Trevor Lawrence dropbacks in this game, Calvin Ridley 34 routes, Zay Jones 33, Christian Kirk only 23. And so that's pretty disappointing on Christian Kirk there to be playing mostly and only in 3 wide receiver sets. Evan, what'd you see out of the Jaguars in week 1?
Yeah, well, last year the Jaguars were a 3 receiver team. They ran 2 tight end sets at only like a 15% clip. In this game, they were up there. Their 2 tight end sets were like 33%. So, and Christian Kirk was like a 90% slot receiver. So Christian Kirk lost a bunch of routes, and man, I think he's going to bounce back against the Chiefs, but so I'm not panic dropping or anything on Christian Kirk, but now we have context for why that happened. More 2 tight end sets, and he was only slot last year. Remember he played outside in Arizona, and last year he was like a 75% slot receiver. Yeah. So we at least we have an explanation. I think he's going to be okay though.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, Zay Jones, Evan's boy, is playing more, and like Zay Jones made another big play. I mean, I like having Zay Jones on my team at this point. I doubt he's on waivers, but if he is, he should not be. I did want to note one thing on Travis Etienne. There was so much worry about Travis Etienne in the pass game. Routes run by Jacksonville Jaguar running backs in this game. Travis Etienne, 29, Tank Bigsby, 4, Dearness Johnson, 0, and Jermichael Hasty was a healthy scratch. I mean, if Travis Etienne's going to run 29 routes and we know he's an explosive runner, like he's going to be a very, very good pick for people who got him in round 4. So,
yeah, they did pull him twice in favor of Tank Bigsby inside the 5-yard line.
Yep.
So that's a little bit of a concern, but Etienne, he still punched in a 26-yarder. And you're right. The passing game usage was right where you wanted if you drafted Travis Etienne.
Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this was one of the worst wide receiver performances that you are ever going to find from Kadarius Toney. Now, a lot of the data, a lot of the tape, everything from this game is skewed because Travis Kelce did not play. We are expecting Travis Kelce to be back for week 2. But I got to say, the wide receiver who looked the best, well, I thought MVS actually had a fine game. Like Marquez Valdez-Scantling did what he did. The wide receiver who had the best game, though, was Evan's boy, Rashee Rice. They only gave him 12 routes. He was extremely productive on those 12 routes. You have to think his role grows and Kadarius Toney's role falters from here. But Chiefs seem to be obsessed with Kadarius Toney no matter what. Evan, what do you think of the Chiefs' ugly performance in the opener last Thursday?
Well, Andy Reid was asked, what are you going to do with Kadarius Toney? He dropped 4 of 5 targets in this game, and they were brutal ones. I mean, like you go back and look at the drops, like he could have had massive gains.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably would have won the game if he had only dropped 2.
Yeah. And they ran a goal line like gadget play for him that he got stuffed on.
Yeah. And then Andy Reid was asked, what are you going to do with Kadarius Toney? And he's like, oh, we're going to let him play through it. So
yeah, I believe him.
Yeah, and I do too. Yeah, I mean, and as a team, they dropped 8 passes. I mean, even Rashee Rice, who played well, he had a drop.
Yeah,
it was a very, very poor performance. There was a report on Fox that Travis Kelce needed like a bunch of blood drained out of his knee. So I don't know. I've already written up the Chiefs game, but I haven't published it yet because I don't know if. And then I wrote it up as if Travis Kelce is going to play, but now I don't know if he's going to play. I'm kind of skeptical now. We'll see.
2 more important things from the Chiefs here. If you drafted Sky Moore, what are you doing now? Because my God, this was one of the worst possible outcomes for Sky Moore. Travis Kelce doesn't play, and Sky Moore still only sees 3 targets. I mean, that is really scary, right? He ran a ton of routes, still only earned 3 targets, did not do anything with them. And that was with Travis Kelce out. So yeah, if you drafted Sky Moore, Evan, what's your panic level right now?
I mean, you didn't draft him as a starter, I hope. Although you may have talked yourself into using him with no Travis Kelce against Detroit. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's just planted at the end of your bench, and we'll see what happens. I mean, that's all you can say.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd say about Sky Moore is like their history of rookies who faceplant as bad as Sky Moore did in year one, the history of them doing something in year two is just so low. Oh, running back stuff. CEH did start this game. I remember Pacheco missed most of camp due to hip and elbow or wrist issue, I believe it was. So CEH started, played 14 snaps, but I thought Pacheco was clearly the one they wanted to use. 31 snaps for Pacheco, 21 routes. McKinnon's box score looked awful, but he did play 20 snaps. He only got 2 opportunities. So I think CH will play less going forward, and Pacheco will play more. But for now, CH is still in the mix.
Yeah, McKinnon played on 6 of 7 third downs and both of the goal line situations. He just didn't get the ball.
Yeah. Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders. I actually thought Jimmy Garoppolo, man, I know everybody hates Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, he's not that bad. Like, you know, he is a very serviceable NFL quarterback. Jacoby Myers was on his way to a massive game before he got lit up with a scary concussion. I expect Jacoby Myers to likely miss time here. That was a really, really bad concussion, but he was about to go off or was already going off. I think it's clear at this point that Jacoby Myers and Juju Smith-Schuster are not one-for-one replacements. We'll get to New England here in a second. But yeah, I thought, you know, the Raiders offense was competent under Jimmy Garoppolo. Evan, what'd you see out of them? They go on the road and get a win here in Denver.
They couldn't run the ball at all against Denver. Josh Jacobs still wound up with 21 touches. He just didn't get you any fantasy points. He had 5 carries inside the 10-yard line and 0 executions.
Yeah.
So you just ran real cold with him, but his role is still really, really good.
Dude, Josh Jacobs, what they're doing to him, like, you don't see this in today's NFL anymore. Last year, Josh Jacobs had 393 touches, 85% of the Raiders running back touches. Week 1 this year, he misses like all of camp. Doesn't matter. 21 out of 23 running back touches, 91% of the touches. I mean, nobody gets this in the NFL anymore at the running back position. Josh Jacobs is extremely, extremely valuable just for that alone. Hope that Jacoby Myers is okay, but if he's out, I would expect a bump and roll for Hunter Renfrow. His role was certainly scary in week 1. Chargers. Everybody was excited about Kellen Moore coming to the Chargers, and I was too. And listen, I want to disclaim this, that this is one game. Vic Fangio's Miami defense is very, very good and dared them to run the football. But Justin Herbert on the week, 17th in average depth of target. Pass rate over expectation for the Chargers, 25th. Pace was also middle of the pack. You know, there was not the exciting stuff that Kellen Moore talked about this offseason that we all expected from Kellen Moore. We didn't see that. Now, I know they ran the ball really well. I know that Josh Kelly and Austin Eckler both went nuts, and I get that you have to do what wins, but it was just a little scary to me. What do you think of Kellen Moore's debut here as Chargers offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I'm actually, well, I mean, they scored 34 points. Yeah. So I would say it was a success. It's just, you have to chalk up a lot of like the results to what Vic Fangio did. As you mentioned, he just dared the Chargers to run, and they did. I mean, it was 8 yards, 8 yards, 8 yards, 8 yards. Almost had 2 100-yard rushers in this game. Austin Eckler, by the way, came out with an ankle injury. That always makes me worried about high ankle sprain. And, you know, and we know that those suck. Josh Kelly, well, he should have been rostered already. He had a great preseason. He was awesome in this first game. The Chargers offensive line kicks ass too. Knock on wood that they don't get any injuries, because that has been what has really killed them. You know, we didn't expect Mike Williams to have a big game there. And I got asked like, oh, are you worried about Mike Williams? Because we were very high on him. I'm not. He also missed some time in this game due to he had like a concussion check. Josh Palmer did play ahead of Quentin Johnston as somewhat expected. And then Quentin Johnson only really got in the game very much because Mike Williams was out for the concussion check. So, but look, they get the Titans next. The Titans are really good against the run, and you can throw the ball on them. So I think that we're going to have a much different sort of, you know, box score next week, as opposed to, you know, what the game plan that was dictated by Vic Fangio. The game was dictated by Vic Fangio. Yeah,
just a note on Josh Kelly. I thought he was awesome also, and certainly should be owned. Obviously, with the ankle now, he should be owned regardless. But a lot of people were saying, oh, Josh Kelly is playing the Zeke role for Kellen Moore. The difference is that at the goal line, they did not go away from Austin Eckler. Eckler 3 carries from inside the 5-yard line. Josh Kelly won. So Austin Eckler still has that goal line role, which is super, super valuable. He continues to score touchdowns at just an outrageous rate. Offense. People just like love to doubt Tua, man. I mean, every time I said something positive about Tua this year, he sucks. Defense has figured him out. Look what happened at the end of last year. The game plan was out on him. He's going to get a concussion. This dude, as a pocket passer, is one of my favorite dudes to play in DFS. He has huge games, and you know when he has huge games where it's going because it's so concentrated. So I thought Tua was awesome. They threw the ball extremely deep with success. No one had an answer for Tyreek Hill. Just an awesome game for Miami pass game here. Evan, what'd you see out of the Dolphins?
Yeah, they just ripped explosive passing game after explosive passing game all day long. No one could hang with Tyreek Hill in the Chargers secondary, and the game plan was awesome by Mike McDaniel. I mean, the Dolphins have the best coaching staff in the league.
Yeah.
They like lined up Tyreek Hill as like a wing back or like an H back and just like got him like free releases off the line of scrimmage. In last year's Chargers-Dolphins game, the Chargers DBs like were able to get physical a little bit with the Dolphins receivers. Mike McDaniel did not let that happen at all, and Tyreek Hill just went off. Jalen Waddle only had 5 targets. He did go 4 for 78. I might put in a trade offer for him entering week 2 in a season-long league because he's going to be just fine. It's just this particular game plan set up Tyreek Hill to succeed, and Tua nailed it. Tua was the best quarterback in the NFL in week 1. He was the number 1 overall fantasy quarterback as well. The Dolphins didn't really run it very successfully. Mostert did get a touchdown. I think that'll be better. But it was an awesome game plan. Really, it was an awesome game plan for Mike McDaniel.
One thing on Waddle, Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft combined for 10 targets in this game. I do not think that duo is good enough to earn 10 targets per game going forward. Certainly good for Jalen Waddle there. One note that I did have, though, that I think is important for deep leaguers, Durham Smythe ran 33 routes in this game. He appears to have consolidated the tight end work there. And like, I don't think Durham Smythe is a great pass catcher, but if he's running 30 plus routes here, he's going to be in play for deep leaguers who need tight end help. New England. So Ramondre Stevenson came into this game on the injury report due to an illness. I didn't know if the usage was affected by that or not, but he didn't like completely ice out Zeke. I mean, Zeke played 28 snaps. Zeke ran 17 routes. Zeke got 7 carries. Zeke got 7 targets, which is just completely ridiculous. He's so bad in the pass game. I mean, just completely ridiculous. So it's not like Ramondre completely iced Zeke, even though Zeke did fumble in this game. This was a weird game, though, because Eagles got out 16-0 early, and like Mac Jones was just able to sling it a little bit. And that was good to see. It's certainly a positive for Mac Jones, and I have a ton of Hunter Henry. It was a positive for that. I'm just not sure that's how most Patriots games are going to go, where you get Mac Jones in these types of setups. But anyways, Evan, what do you think of the Patriots week 1 game here against the Eagles? Yeah,
56 dropbacks for Mac Jones. See, and then that spikes all the dudes' passing game production. I mean, Hunter Henry had a game. Ramondre had a game as a receiver. Kendrick Bourne like went off, you know, I mean, for Kendrick Bourne. Mike Gesicki had 3 catches. Juju had 4. Zeke had 7 targets, as you mentioned. Demario Douglas had 4 for 40. So I don't think Mac Jones, I don't think the Patriots want Mac Jones dropping back to pass 56 times a game. You know, I think it'll be in like the 37 drop back range. And so these week 1 statistics are, I think that they can be kind of deceptive. I mean, everybody that's got Kendrick Bourne is like going to start him next week.
Yeah. Well, the reason that Kendrick Bourne became a thing was because Devontae Parker got scratched late for this game. We'll see if Devontae Parker's back. I do think Kendrick Bourne might keep playing, but Devontae Parker playing a lot, but Devontae Parker coming back would eat some targets up there. Yeah, I'm not like falling over myself to go get Kendrick Bourne. I do think Hunter Henry, though, is legit. I mean, I was taking so much Hunter Henry in round 18, and I feel pretty good about that at this point.
Yeah, he was going so late. Wow.
Jets. So, I mean, I actually feel bad for Jets fans, man. I don't care about the laundry and all that, but my cousin is like this diehard Jets fan. He lives and dies with the Jets. And I've never seen him so excited for a season in the history of Jets football. And for Aaron Rodgers to blow out his Achilles on the first series of the game is just so brutal. Credit to the Jets, though, for coming back and winning the game. Obviously, though, we have major quarterback concerns here. They claim that Zach Wilson is going to be the starter going forward. And I just want to say, Evan, I think it's kind of irresponsible to go into the season with Zach Wilson as your backup. It's not that hard to get a good backup or a competent one. I mean, I think Mike White's better than Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham, basically anything. I mean, the 49ers got Sam Darnold. They knew that Trey Lance couldn't be the backup to Purdy. So now we're stuck here with Zach Wilson unless they have some other idea, which I don't know what that would be, like Carson Wentz or something. To me, that might be worse than Zach Wilson. So I don't know what the Jets are going to do. What do you think of last night, Evan? And what do you think about Jets stuff going forward now that we know Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, is done?
Well, they ought to go get Chad Kelly.
Okay.
Swag Kelly.
Yes.
However, Chad Kelly right now, I looked him up. He's playing for the Toronto Argonauts, and they're in like a playoff race, and he signed a 3-year extension like 2 days ago. So they're not getting Chad Kelly, even though he would obviously save their season. I may have to take an early capitulation on Breece Hall.
Oh, baby.
And I don't even think that Breece Hall looks 100%. I think that he's still at like 70%, which is scary as shit if you faded him, because he had like 130 yards in this game.
Yeah.
He had 147 yards from scrimmage. He had an 83-yard run, and it wasn't even his most impressive run. He had like a runway on that run. Really kind of made Tre'Davious White miss, but obviously he has the afterburners, the straight line. He didn't even really need to make a cut on that run, and he got caught from behind. But he had other runs in this game that were like super impressive runs. So, and again, I think he's at like 70-75%, something like that. Dalvin Cook stunk.
Of course.
I mean, I think I'm going to have to, although, you know, the offense could hurt him, I suppose,
right.
But I may have to capitulate already.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Two things. First, like these teams that the Vikings cut Dalvin Cook because he sucks. Right. And then like teams like are falling all over themselves to go get Dalvin Cook. It's so clear Breece Hall is better. Even if he is only 75%, I expect Breece Hall's role to grow and grow and grow. Dude was awesome last night. I think the concern, Evan, for me mostly is on the Garrett Wilson stuff. Like Breece's outlook, I think, is definitely worse, obviously, without Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has been so fantasy friendly to running backs in his career. The Garrett Wilson thing, though, man, is super scary. I know Garrett Wilson still had a really, really good rookie year last year with total dust at quarterback, but God, it's scary right now. I wish I could have some of those early second round Garrett Wilson picks back now that Aaron Rodgers is done. So, yeah. Steelers.
Oh, yeah, and they face the Cowboys next.
Yeah.
So, it's rough out there, man.
Steelers. So, as expected, Jaylen Warren played a ton. Najee Harris, 33 snaps. Jaylen Warren, 25 snaps. Warren actually had more opportunities than Najee, 9-8. This was a game, though, in which the Steelers did not show up, got blown the doors off right out of the gate by Brandon Ayuk and the San Francisco 49ers. So, I do think Jaylen Warren will play more in these trailing game scripts, which this was. What did you think of Steelers in week one?
They just got absolutely steamrolled, dump trucked. I mean, it looked like the 49ers and the Steelers did not belong on the same football field.
Yeah.
So, and I think it was Kevin Cole, who I think he does his own thing now, but he wrote for PFF for a long time, did a little bit of stuff for us at Roto World. And he was talking about how he had looked historically, and remember how Kenny Pickett had an awesome preseason? Quarterbacks going into their second years that have awesome preseason, there's like zero predictive value to that.
Oh, yeah. That's not, I don't think that's where like the Kenny Pickett bullishness came from, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, he was a first round pick in the NFL draft. I mean,
yeah.
Also your boy, Matt Canada is still running George Pickens on these deep, like essentially clear out routes. Are they going to have to change that because Johnson is now out like indefinitely with a hamstring injury?
I mean, the people that were taking Pickens over Deontay Johnson were so out of their minds, and now they're going to get paid off because Deontay Johnson is out with a hamstring injury for a few weeks, which is so painful. Still thought Deontay Johnson was an awesome pick. Yeah, Matt Canada is just a dunce, man. I mean, and that's what I was going to say. Like, week 1, home against 49ers, certainly a tough matchup. So I'm not going to completely write it off. But yeah, I have concerns for sure about the way Matt Canada leads this team. And now that Deontay Johnson is out, I have major concerns. They're going to have to play Allen Robinson a ton. Allen Robinson did play a ton in this game. Anyways, 46 routes on 52 dropbacks, 8 targets for 17% share for Allen Robinson. I mean, they're going to need to get a bunch out of him and get a bunch out of Calvin Austin going forward. I mean,
yeah, Calvin Austin, I think, is going to be the one-for-one direct replacement for Deontay Johnson. And it's going to be, are we concerned at all? Pat Freiermuth suffered like a chest injury or something?
Yeah, he got back in the game, so it seems like it's going to be okay. But yeah, last team here for the AFC is the Tennessee Titans. So the big headline from a usage perspective was that Tajee Spears outsnapped Derrick Henry 34-30 in a game that was very close throughout. But if you kind of look back at Derrick Henry, and we've known this for a long time, he doesn't play a ton of snaps. Typically, it's just when he is out there, he gets the ball so much. Opportunities were still 18-7 in favor of Derrick Henry. So I'm not like completely panicking if you have Derrick Henry. Obviously, if you listen to Evan, followed our rankings, you do not have much Derrick Henry at all right now. But yeah, what do you think about all the Tajee Spears stuff, Evan, and anything on the Titans?
It was surprising, I guess. But, I mean, Tajee Spears only touched the ball 4 times.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry had a real big play in the passing game. DeAndre Hopkins just soaks in targets like wherever he goes.
Everywhere.
Treylon Burks had more snaps than DeAndre Hopkins, but only had 3 targets.
Yeah.
And then, I thought one promising development was that Chig Okonkwo, and he only had 2 targets and 0 catches, okay? So you look at the box score, you're not impressed. But he was like almost an every down player, and I thought that was one concern for Chig, that he would be like a passing down tight end. But it looks like he's going to be more that. It's just their passing game was totally dysfunctional. Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. He took 3 sacks on 37 dropbacks. Their offensive line is a big concern. He took 10 hits.
I mean,
it makes me start to think about Will Levis and Malik Willis.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets bad enough, they certainly should take a look at those guys. Offensive line play, we knew was going to be a huge issue. On Chig, one thing I would say, he was wide open down the right sideline for what would have been like a 60-plus yard touchdown, and it was just like a yard in front of him. I mean, that would have changed completely the outlook that people had on Chig coming out of this game. The concern for me on Chig and Treylon Burks is what you said. 13 targets on 36 routes for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, on a team that is not that voluminous in the throwing game, if DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a 33% targets per route run rate, like, it's going to be hard for the other guys. All right. That is going to do it for the very first AFC team-by-team pod of the season. We'll be back shortly, next episode, to do the NFC team-by-team podcast. Be sure you are subscribed anywhere you can hear this podcast, or on YouTube. It is indeed free. You can follow me at Adam Levitan, Evan at Evan Silva, and at Establish the Run on Twitter. For Evan, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.